turn to Ms. Hnin. Ms. Hnin.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. So when the head of the Burmese military, Mya Aye, staged the coup, he knew there was a price to pay, but of course he is expecting that he can get away with it. So it's very important for us to prove him wrong. In Burma, people are very brave and they are proving Mya Aye that he is wrong. When the military decided when they thought to arrest NLD leaders and other activists like my dad, they thought they could stop protest. But we have seen the biggest protest in more than 30 years. People are holding signs calling for democracy. And these signs are written in English because they want the world to help. But peaceful protests have been met with increased violence by the military. People are dying on the street every day, and children have been shot in the head. The military is using every tool they have to silence people from speaking out. More than 60 people now have been killed for peacefully protesting. And we now have more than 2,000 people in prison since the coup started, and we don't know how many people have disappeared. And we haven't been told where they are being detained or their condition, and they don't have any access to lawyers. Today is my father's birthday. Nearly half my life, we haven't been able to celebrate his birthday together because he is in prison for speaking out. And my first memory of seeing my dad is through iron bars in insane prison. It's still very hard for me, although I'm used to it. And at the same time, I'm heartbroken and angry that so many children will now have to go through what I went through, growing up without a parent and not knowing when they will see the parents again. And this has to stop. It's not just in the cities and against peaceful protesters that military is attacking civilians. In Karen state, the military is firing mortar bombs into villages, and more than 5,000 villagers are already hiding in the jungle. We see military trucks and soldiers on the streets of Yangon and other cities, but they never left the streets in many ethnic states. In the past 10 years of reform process, human rights violations against ethnic minorities have increased. The military saw sanctions relax even as they will continue carrying on human rights violations against ethnic minorities. This created a sense of impunity for the military. They even thought they could get away with the genocide against the Rohingya, and so far they have. And of course, they think they can get away with the staging a coup now because they were allowed to get away with genocide. People in Burma want the coup reversed, and they want the democratically elected government to be reinstated, but they don't want to go back under the military drafted 2008 constitution. In the US, you wouldn't accept a situation where your chair of the Joint Chief of Staff choose 3 cabinet members. You wouldn't accept him choosing 25% of the member of Congress. You wouldn't accept it, and we can't either. People are risking their lives asking for federal democracy. And the military was wrong to underestimate the courage and resistance by the people of Burma. But so far, Mya Aye hasn't been wrong to think the international response would be weak. My country is now controlled by the battle-hardened soldiers. They are not diplomats. Statements alone are not enough. Of course, we are realistic, and we know that international action alone cannot free our country. We will win our own freedom, but international action has an important role to play. I want to take this moment to thank the US for being the first to act against the coup, freezing government reserves and sanctioning 3 military companies. You have been the forefront of supporting human rights and democracy in my country, and I'm really grateful for that. There is much more US can and must do. You must target the economic interests of all the military and impose sanctions on military companies, including financial services and insurance. Now that military control the government, revenues to them from oil and gas need to be stopped, along with trade in timber and jams from Burma. Please work with allies like the UK and EU to coordinate these targeted sanctions. And US has arms embargo, but most countries in the world don't. Please work with allies to build a global coalition of countries imposing arms embargo. In my written statement, I have listed more steps that can be taken. There are many measures that US can take: diplomatic, economic, humanitarian, and legal. In my country, people are going out on the street every single day protesting, knowing that they could be shot anytime, they could be arrested anytime, and they could be beaten anytime. They are risking their lives, and they're doing everything they can. And we are asking, please, every tools you have and everything you can to help us. Thank you.
Thank you. I understand that Mr. Law is trying to connect with us. Mr. Law, are you with us yet? Well, I hope it's not the Chinese government seeking to interfere in Mr. Law's testimony from Hong Kong. Well, let me turn to a round of questions. If we are able to connect, we will certainly intercede his testimony at that time. Let me turn to the ranking member for any questions or comments.
Well, thank you. Ms. Hnin, your testimony was very good, particularly as far as details are concerned, and that's what we always hunger for is details on top of the generalities that we know. But tell me this: the things that we have done. What is your idea of how this is going to end? I mean, the military takeover by the people who are in charge of that have shown that over many years that they can survive through a lot of pressure. How do you see this thing ending? What's your thought on that?
Thank you very much, Senator. It's a very good question. So the military is not immune to pressure. The military is not immune to the international pressure. So far, it's been over a month since the coup started, and every day we have seen the situation getting worse and worse. It's not just the cracking down on peaceful protester anymore. It's pure killing in some parts of the country. And what we've seen from the international community is mostly statements of condemnation. And what we want them to do, and especially United States, is very powerful. And you can use with your allies to, like I stated before, sanctions on military companies. They care about their pockets. They care about pressure. Of course, these will not work straight away, but this will send a very strong message to the military that they need to respect human rights and they need to stop violating human rights on the ground.
Well, thank you. I appreciate those observations. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I understand that Senator Cardin is with us virtually. Senator Cardin?
Testing.
Testing. Is that Mr. Law?
Yes. I'm so sorry, Chairman. I don't know why there are problems. Maybe it's from my end, technical problems.
Okay, we'll recognize you now. Your full statement will be in the record, and if you can summarize your remarks. I read your statement. It's excellent. Go ahead.
Great. Thank you so much, Chairman Menendez, Ranking Member Rich, and the other distinguishing members of the committee. It's really my honor to be able to testify in front of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. The state of democracy around the world is grim. The 2020 Priorities of Democracy report found that 2020 was the first year since 2001 that there are more autocratic institutions than democratic ones in the world. The latest Freedom in the World 2021 report produced by Freedom House also recognized this worsening democracy decline. We all are in the 50th consecutive year of decline in the global freedom. What Hong Kong people have suffered from in the past few years are clear examples of it. 2019, the year that Hong Kong people uprose. The scenes of millions of people marching down the streets captured the eyeballs of every corner of the world. We chant for the promises made to us: democracy, autonomy, and freedom. Congressmen in the US vowed their support to the movement and passed several bills, including the historic Hong Kong Human Rights and Democracy Act. We were all grateful for the warm encouragement from around the world. Yet, Starting from 2020, we have witnessed repeated crackdowns from the Chinese Communist Party. Assemblies have been banned, police brutality has emerged with impunity, and Beijing has circumvented all our local legislation and consultation process to impose the notorious national security law. Under the law, the government can prosecute anyone who chants a protest slogan, display a liberate Hong Kong flag, or even participate in a primary. The national security law is a convenient legal tool to silence the pro-democracy camp and strip away our basic rights. Last week was particularly devastating. The government has thrown 47 prominent activists in jail because they planned to exercise their constitutional rights to run for office and veto the government's bills. Beijing has also announced an electoral reform in Hong Kong that turns the city's legislative council into a National People's Congress-style rubber stamp chamber. With the Democratic candidates likely barred, Beijing's appointees will occupy more than half of the seats without an open election. The election in Hong Kong has become selection. The erosion of freedom in Hong Kong reflects the world Beijing wants to craft. Beijing is expanding its autocratic influence and denounces democratic values on a global scale. It tacitly stands behind the military junta in Myanmar by opposing actions from the UN Human Rights Council and justifying the coup as a major cabinet reshuffle. Hereby, I want to vow my support to the protesters in Myanmar because they have been through the toughest and bloodiest week in their anti-coup protest, where dozens of citizens were killed by the soldiers' firearms. People died under the hands of tyrannies. The casualties and disastrous consequences incurred by dictators are no less than climate emergencies or public health crises. Yet, the international community seems very reluctant to tackle it with coordinated actions. This latency has to be changed. We have to rise and defend global democracy. The fight starts with formulating global goals, visions, agendas, and actions. It can only be accomplished by democratic countries working together to avoid being divided and conquered by China. Here is the concrete direction that can fundamentally change the trend of democracy decline. In the upcoming Democracy Summit, important democracies, including the G7s, European countries, and other democracies, should come together with a preliminary formulation of an alliance for safeguarding democracy worldwide. The goal is straightforward. In the next 5 years, as long as we strive for 1% improvement annually in the Global Liberal Democracy Index, measured by the renowned Varieties of Democracy Project, we can reverse the declining state of democracy worldwide by 2026 and rise back to the level around 2012, the highest democracy index human society have ever experienced. It's a measurable and essential goal if we are determined enough to fight the rise of authoritarianism. Reversing the trend of global democracy decline is the mission of our era. Combating the rise of authoritarianism led by China and supporting Hong Kong's democratic movement is an important step to this mission. Hong Kong people will never give up, and we will fight for democracy as we say, 光復香港，時代革命. Thank you so much. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you. Let me turn to, I understand.
It is to see you here, democracy and peace.
Very much.
Mr. Chairman, organizing in the face of free speech online.
We are worried what will happen because compared to 2007 and in the past uprising, we are seeing the live footages of people on the street protesting. And now they are shutting down internet from 1 a.m. until 6:30 a.m. now. So we are worried what will happen because the military is doing nightly raids and people can't report it on social media about the human rights violations happening on the ground. So we are very grateful that we have live information coming out from the country, and also it gives more evidence to the international community that they need to act now. But of course, the military is also using the social media platform to spread false information as well. But on a greater level, we appreciate having the internet, and we need that nightly internet cut to be stopped so that human rights violations can stop happening during the night as well. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Senator. First of all, Hong Kong people can still access to Facebook and Twitter, this social media platform. But when they speak about the situation of Hong Kong or urging the international community to hold China accountable, they could be seen as breaching the national security law. So it really adds up and spread a white terror for them, making them afraid of expressing their genuine opinion online. Furthermore, China has been deploying its misinformation overseas, and also a lot of information warfare are conducting. So I have always been urging countries working with social media companies to really monitor and curb this misinformation campaign led by state actors, and to really safeguard democracy by stopping these infiltration to our system and uphold the values of democratic society.
Thank you. Thank you very much. A vote is now underway, so I will just ask if there's any member who is on virtually who has not had an opportunity, if you would identify yourself. Let me start off. I understand maybe Senator Haggerty is with us. Okay. I understand maybe Senator Markey is with us. Senator Markey, Senator Haggerty. Is anyone out there?
Mr. Chairman, this is Senator Van Hollen. How are you? I don't know if the others are here or not.
Having not heard from either one of them, I will turn to you, Senator Van Hollen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank all three of our witnesses today for their powerful testimony and their courageous actions in support of freedom and democracy. Mr. Law, I have a question for you because I joined with Senator Toomey, and last year we passed the Hong Kong Accountability Act, which provided additional authorities for the President of the United States to sanction officials responsible for the crackdown and taking away freedom and democracy in Hong Kong. The prior administration used that for some targeted measures against individuals. I was pleased to see the Biden administration issue some sanctions against those in Russia who've been very instrumental in the crackdown on Navalny. And we're urging the Biden administration now to take similar steps with respect to the further crackdown on Hong Kong. As you said, 47 democracy activists, have been detained and threatened. The sanctions authority allows for sanctions not only against individuals, but also banks that bank those individuals, the banks that those individuals rely on. Do you think it would be productive if the Biden administration both imposed further sanctions on individuals responsible for the crackdown, but also used that authority to sanction some of the banks that they do business with?
Thank you, Senator, for your questions. The answer is a resounding yes. It's an important tool by using sanctions to have a deterrence effect on the individuals who are responsible for human rights violation. And in fact, it is one of the very few tools that can really impose deterrent effects on an individual level. So I agree that the list of sanctions on Chinese and Hong Kong officials should be expanded. And on the other hand, sanctions on corporation, which is colluding with the Chinese Communist Party on human rights violations, is also important because sometimes these business, they are using the name of non-political actors, but actually they are tactically helping the Chinese Communist Party to promote its agenda and really taking advantage of our open and democratic values and system, but getting benefits from autocracies. I think these kind of behaviors should be curbed, and the business sector should be warned very carefully that they should not be cooperating with the Chinese Communist Party and other dictators. Otherwise, they will face consequence. I think sanctioning them release such a clear message, and it's much needed.
Thank you. Right, that's the idea, is that those financial institutions that are enabling those individuals also recognize that they could be penalized through the sanctions. Let me just thank all of you. As the chairman said, a vote's on, and I see Senator Markey is here. But thank all of you for your testimony.
Thank you, Senator Brown.
The opportunity to
hear how you think the United States can better support the Burmese people in their push for democracy following the military coup.
Thank you so much, Senator Markey. And please let me take this opportunity to thank you. I understand that you sponsor the Burma's Political Prisoner Act as well. So this is the moment that, we need that more than ever now, because there are growing numbers of political prisoners in the country, and we need to continue. We need the US to continue its support and aid from the NED and the government to make a difference, because we need more organizations on the ground to document human rights violations in the country. So that's one aspect of it. And also the other thing is, like I said, sanctions military companies, and targeted sanctions is very important. We are asking for US to establish a global arms embargo as well, global coalitions of countries to impose embargoes. So when you have that, the China vetoes at the UN Security Council, you can make progress towards it, even with the China. So that's one action the US can take. And you have so many tools that you can use to help people in Burma, and please use those to help us.
Yeah, we'll do. We're with you. We're going to have your back throughout this entire ordeal. We're going to come out on the other side of it, but we need the United States to exercise its historic moral, political, economic leadership, and we are going to do that. Thank you for your great leadership. And Mr. Law, we have seen beautiful displays of solidarity between pro-democracy Hong Kongers and Burmese protesters over the past several weeks. It seems that these protesters are sharing information on how to manage the brutal assaults by authorities. Do you see any unique opportunities for the United States government or private industry to support these exchanges?
Thank you so much, Senator, and also for your continuous support for Hong Kong's democratic movement. I think for now, we can form virtual community on social platform. We can form multi-alliance that share our information and consolidate our support to each other's democratic struggles. So it has been enhancing the ability of showing these protests to the world. And I think the democratic communities in the Western countries can also facilitate that exchange, increase the education on the threat of authoritarianism and these protesters. It's crucial because perception changes actions. It really takes us to raise the awareness on what's happening in Hong Kong and Myanmar in order for us to get grassroots support in the Western countries and also push forward to change. What we're facing is a global democracy decline, is a global democracy crisis. The Chinese government is tactically backing the Myanmar coup, and this is a situation that we have to resolve with coordinated actions. So I think the Western democracies really take a huge role in here, and we are expecting consolidated efforts and organizations that could step up and to defend democracy.
Thank you. And again, thank you for your leadership. Thank all of you for your leadership. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for giving me this opportunity. I know the roll call is on, but I appreciate it.
Thank you, Senator Markey. There is a vote going on, so we'll have to bring this hearing to a conclusion. But I do want to ask each of you in 1 minute, which I know is always difficult, but in 1 minute, tell me the one thing you would want the United States to do as it relates to your specific country that you think would make a difference. Doctor?
Thank you, Chairman, for that question. For me, the one specific thing that people of South Sudan need is to exercise the right to elect their own leaders. We have never had that right. And we struggled for so long. We have sacrificed so many people for us to get our country. And since doing that, we have never had a chance to vote. The elections are supposed to take place next year. We want the U.S. help so that those elections happen and we finally get to vote. Thank you.
Mr. Law?
Well, for now, we have to see the decline of democracy as a global crisis with global agendas, missions, actions. So I think the US definitely could play the role of consolidating the efforts around the world, forming an alliance that aims at tackling the rise of authoritarianism and clearly positioning China as the greatest threat to our democracy and our rule-based international system. It requires a lot of cooperation and strength to do it, and I believe that the Western democracies have to come together under the facilitation of the US and the other allies.
Thank you. Ms. Wei Nin?
Thank you very much. We want to see the future of Burma, what we want to see is federal democracy with equal rights for every individual living in the country. And US has already been using diplomatic pressure and other pressure. So I would like to urge the United States to use other measures that you have, economic, humanitarian, legal, and also continue diplomatic pressure on the military to stop human rights violations and stop this coup and give people freedom and human rights and democracy that we deserve. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank all of you. You are the vivid examples of why democracy is so important and those willing to struggle for it in their respective countries. You give us all a sense of inspiration. We salute and recognize your individual sacrifices.